Ditch the fairy tale, princess. It's time to step outside the status quo and blaze your own trail. The path littered with setbacks, successes, and newfound passions. Why? Because when you break away from the script, you start to pursue a life by choice. One that is all yours. Live unscripted and rewrite your life.
Welcome back to the show. I'm excited to introduce you to Brittany. She is someone who is going to help us. And I mean, help us, okay? And by us, I mean me and you. The ones who are a little bit like lost in the sauce sometimes. Maybe you're experiencing a little bit of burnout. Maybe you're not as productive as you'd like to be. Maybe you're somebody who's been buying all the courses. You've read the books. You're listening to podcasts. You're here. You're listening to the podcast, but you aren't integrating things. And maybe you're starting to feel like, I don't know, a little overwhelmed from all of the stuff. Maybe your calendar looks like a bunch of shit you don't want to be doing. I don't know, but there's humans like Brittany out there that can help people like us who aren't maybe as strategic or good at being as productive as we would like to be. Brittany, I'm super excited. Welcome to the show.
Yes, thank you so much for having me. I'm super pumped.
Yes. Okay, you guys, Brittany helps entrepreneurs build businesses without burnout. I'm here for that, right? She's someone who can organize routines, help you with time management, and create some tech systems in your life to work better for you, right? And they work for you. Those are what those systems are for. But if you don't know how to use them, they can work against you. I know that. As a former event planner and professional home organizer, I think I just need, can we all just get a Brittany in our pocket? Like that's, I'm sure people ask like, how do I get a Brittany? She is now the Marie Kondo for business with her consulting, coaching, and podcasting. And as the CEO of Brittany & Co., she uses her organization skills to help business owners simplify to amplify their income, impact, and influence. And when she's not helping business owners, she's raising her twin girls, Kenna and Layla, with her husband. And they're busy camping and learning the art of wine and cheese. Okay, yeah, can we be best friends?
I'm down. Let's do it.
I love it. Okay, so talk us through what are probably like the biggest struggles or reasons why people end up feeling so burnt out.
Yeah, so there's so many. Where do I start? I would say the first place, there's a stat out there from the International Data Corporation that says that we spend 12 and a half hours a week looking for shit, especially in this digital space. You're talking JPEG images and PDFs and links and phone numbers and emails and files and color codes and your EIN number to fill out your taxes. Like we spend a lot of time searching for stuff because we don't have great systems in place that are simple and easy to follow and don't make our brains want to explode. So I would say is the first one for sure.
My God, that one alone, like that's probably 12 and a half hours a week.
Yeah. And with a lost time of productivity of like bouncing between tasks and getting super distracted and forgetting what you were doing and going down the rabbit hole and then forgetting a password, like it's a real thing. And I think that ever since everything turned remote and there's a lot more people working remotely, it's getting worse and worse because there's so many apps and programs. I'm also a business minimalist. So like, I want you to delete as much as possible. Like stop using Slack and email and text messaging and DMs and like all the things because it is chaos.
It is chaos. And I find that like different people that I've hired in my business or have worked with all want me to use a different system. Like there's Trello or Asana or Slack. And I'm like, it's almost more work for me to go into every one. For one, you have to learn each and every system. And for two, like, it's not like I have a secretary giving me the notes from each one of just the things I need to look at. Like, where do you turn the updates off on or the notifications? It's like, you're inundated with so many things. Literally, you guys, 12 and a half hours a week is like 3 to 4 days you're spending looking for shit. And I know this to be true, especially if you're an entrepreneur, it's probably more than that because there's so many times I've sat down to do something that I didn't quite know how to do it, or I needed something for it and I had to go look for it. And then by the time I got the information, I didn't even actually accomplish the task. So not only did I waste the time looking for the things, I didn't even do what I actually needed to do to move the needle in my business. Like, talk about frustration and talk about probably why a lot of people who have it on their heart to be entrepreneurs really struggle and or fail and go back to what they know or maybe a more corporate structure where there's not so many different things expected of them. Do you find that to be true?
That's the thing. You didn't start a business to run a business. Like you started a business because you were good at a thing and you realized you could help people and make money doing it. But like half the time people do that for like 20% and the rest of it is all of this other stuff that they're not efficient at, and they don't make the money. And it's like this constant cycle. And that's why people get so burnt out is because you didn't start a business to do all of this stuff. And operations, keep track of tasks and manage your time. Like that's not a thing you start a business for. You started it because you were good at something.
Right. Or you solved a problem for some specific person. Yeah. Listen, like she's talking to me, you guys. If you are listening to this podcast and you think looking at me that I have all my shit figured out, like there's a reason why I love this podcast platform. There's a reason why specific guests don't just happen to come into my world at a random time. The process and the systems and the back end stuff are what holds so many people back from being able to really grow into the niche part of their business. Like what is the actual thing that got you to start the business, that got you motivated or excited to start something, right? I know for a lot of people in the beauty industry, it's like that one-to-one client interaction, but then you thought opening a salon was the answer. So you went ahead and took on that huge overwhelming task of running the salon and managing people and everything that falls under that umbrella. And you've gotten away from the one-to-one client service that you so deeply loved because you thought maybe you could do it better than the salon you were at, or circumstances presented themselves. Like for me, that's how the salon fell in my lap. It was an opportunity that I felt like I couldn't say no to. And that's something else that you speak a ton to, because I know if you're a minimalist, like you have to have a really strong muscle for no.
That leads perfectly into my second point is time management and calendar management. I see entrepreneurs basically, so here's the biggest thing. They don't put sales time on their calendar. They don't put client work time on their calendar if they're a service provider, and they don't put operations time on their calendar. So then what happens is they completely fill their calendar with whatever, sales calls, client calls, all the things, meetings, networking, and you fill the calendar, but you still have to do sales, you still have to do client work, and you still have to do the operations and admin stuff. So that's why people end up working 17 hours a day, is because you fill your calendar because you couldn't say no. And you still have to do all that stuff as a business owner. So yes, being a minimalist, I say no to a lot of things. I say no to stuff. I say no to stuff on my calendar. I say no to podcasts. I say no to clients. Like you have to start exercising that muscle, because the more you say yes to things that are not like a perfect fit, the more you're saying no to things or blocking things that could come to you that are amazing.
Yeah. Oh, it's so true. And I know that we're usually the reason why things aren't working. So does it take a lot of self-reflection when you sit down with clients? Do they come to you hoping that you'll solve all the world's problems for them, but then really they have to turn around and do the work?
They do. Yeah. Yeah. And a lot of it is like, I can put tactical things in place and help them design their week and create their perfect ideal schedule and help them with time management and organize their stuff. But it all comes down to routines. Business is built in boring routines and doing the same shit over and over and over and being consistent. I know that's super cliche, but it really does work. And you've got to have the boundaries, right? To be able to say no and to say, I want Fridays off, and say no to anyone who wants to fill your calendar on Fridays, right? You've got to have this like big picture of what you want and what you want your week to look like. And then you actually have to have boundaries around that time. You have to tell people no. You've got to put things on the calendar that you love and stop taking on all the stuff that you don't love. And that's really hard. Even for me, there's a lot of things that come through and I'm like, I really want to say yes, but I know it doesn't align with like big picture, and I have to say no. Like, and it's tough. It's a muscle that you have to build for sure.
Totally. It's so true. And they're like, I'm thinking of my future calendar and all the things that are on it that I probably should go ahead and take off.
Oh, yes.
How have you seen productivity shift for people once they start working with you and really implementing these really simple things into their life?
Yeah, I think one of the biggest things is they just don't know what they don't know. And a lot of people tell me that. They're like, I just don't know, right? Like, I'm not naturally organized. I'm not actually like inclined to create systems. I feel like as a visionary person, I work with a lot of visionaries. They're like, I feel like systems are going to like put me in this box and constrain me. But what they really find is that the more consistent and simple routines they put in place, the easier it makes their lives, right? So like if you're sending the same types of emails over and over and over, create a template so you don't even have to think about it. If you are assigning the same types of things to your team over and over, create one training video so you don't have to tell them 500 times. Like, they start to see the mental load come off. And I actually use all these same systems in my home life too. So I'm an Asana girl. I put all of my task stuff in Asana. I actually assign stuff to my husband. We're getting ready to start homeschooling the kids. Like, that is going to happen. We are getting ready to live in an RV for a year. And like, without Asana, I would lose my freaking mind. But I don't have to think about that stuff because it's there. I've put it into a system, right? So like the mental load just like goes away. I think that's what a lot of people realize is they're like, oh, this isn't actually this hard. I just have to be consistent and actually do the work.
Yeah. No, and that's the part. Like, we as humans love to overcomplicate shit. Like, it is just what we do. I don't understand. Like, why do we do that to ourselves? It's just,
I don't know.
I don't either.
Yep. It's a thing.
I wish there was an off button for that, because it's honestly, sometimes it feels so unfair. So I know there's like simple things that we talked about what your favorite things to speak about are, is like the color coding on the calendar. Does that really help? Because I feel like when I create things on Calendly, like they seem to all be like the same color, but and just simple things like that can make huge differences.
Yes, 100%. So I have my BCO method, and I use this for everything. So B stands for business development, C stands for client services, and O stands for operations. Every business has that. I don't care what you do, where you are, or how many people you have, right? Bigger businesses obviously break down into other departments, but everybody has to grow the business, take care of the clients, and do the operations. So with that being said, that's how I color code my calendar. That's what folders I use inside of my email. Those are the folders I use inside of Google Drive to organize things. That's how I run team meetings. That's how I do strategy, because I only have to think of one of three things. Am I thinking about business development right now? Am I thinking about client stuff right now? Or I'm thinking about operations? And when I organize stuff in my folders that way, again, I only have to think of one place. Which place is it going? So the color coding and simplifying that, you've got to just pick a system and go with it. Because the more you're like, oh, well, I could create this here, and maybe if I have 14 colors here, it just gets so complicated. Like you said, we just complicate things. So for me, the color coding and the simplifying of that, when I look at my calendar, if I've got a bunch of blue for the day, it's all business, right? So I know personal things probably aren't going to happen. If I have a purple day for personal, I know that's full of personal doctor's appointments, kids stuff, sports, activities. I know a lot of business stuff's not going to happen. So visually, I can see how my day is going to go. I can really like start to plan and shift my mindset around that, because I already got like a visual of what's going on. I know it sounds super, super simple, but I think a lot of that even adds into the 12 and a half hours of finding stuff, right? I can find documents in like 0.3 seconds. Like, which folder is it in? Boom, found it. Which color is it? Boom, found it. And I think that's where when people start to implement that, they're like, oh, this was really easy, right? It's just, you don't know what you don't know, and you don't know that it can be that easy. We all just make it way harder on ourselves.
So ideally, you need to work with somebody like Brittany before you start overcomplicating and making things into a mess. I'm literally like, oh, this would be really fun to watch you unfuck my shit up with.
Oh, that's my favorite. I have people that are like, oh my God,
it's like a treasure
don't look
chest.
at it. They're like, I have so many files everywhere. It's a disaster. I'm like, oh, that's my favorite. I'm like, just dump the whole puzzle out and I'm going to put it all back together for you like a ninja.
Okay, you have a new client. I'm starting tomorrow. It's so fun because I've worked with so many different people over the years in what was kind of like a side hustle. And then it was like, maybe I'm doing this, especially with the podcast production and like the variable things that have been created from the podcast, like different PDFs and different collabs I've done, these different little courses I've put out, freebies, opt-ins, email list, like organization. What else? My text list community, just really like the funnels and systems that are in the back end stuff. Like, it's all so uninteresting to me. And I find that to be true for a lot of creatives. Like, I want to know how it works. Don't get it twisted. Like, I want to know that if I click two things, I'm going to get to what I want. I don't want to have to be constantly, okay, well, how did I get this out of the Google Doc, or what document? Where's the link for that? Like, literally, you sound like Christmas morning to me right now.
No, and that's the thing, right? You have these visionary creatives that are like ideas and creating things and selling things and doing all of this. And it's funny because I have a little bit of both. Like, I'm obviously much more systems inclined, but I do have that side of like visionary and creative because I'm the CEO too. So like, I have to do that for my business. But the problem comes is that I have the idea and I'm like, that sounds amazing. And then my brain over here is like, oh my God, that's like 4,000 tasks and I need to create a project and a folder and this. So then I don't do it. So like, I'm my own worst enemy in my business because I have ideas, but then the logistics side comes in. I'm like, that's too much. We're not going to do that. So you need the visionary with the kind of like integrator systems person because it's a perfect balance. I work with a lot of visionaries and a lot of them, they don't like systems because it puts them into a box, but it actually gives them more freedom because they have more time to actually think of things. They have more time to not be searching for documents and links, and they don't have to worry about the back-end tech stuff when they're creating funnels. So there's definitely a balance to it, but I love diving in and like organizing the digital clutter. It's my favorite.
That sounds so wonderful. If you're struggling, reach out to Brittany. You can find her on Instagram. I just wanted to share her with the community today because I know a lot of us struggle with organization. I know I'm not alone. If you're someone who doesn't struggle with organization, I guarantee you have a best friend who does. And you can send this episode to them to just get some insight on how you can create a little bit more simplicity in your life by getting organized. And again, having someone show you how to do that is going to probably be your fastest way out of disorganized hell and out of the feeling of burnout. Because I feel like if you're doing what you truly love and things come a little bit with more ease, could you imagine having 3 to 4 days off a month versus 3 to 4 days spent looking for shit and frustration? Because you're not looking for stuff like with a smile on your face. You're probably doing it at the last second, at the last minute when you need it yesterday. So imagine that, like if you could take off, that's like a couple weeks a year you could take off and do nothing or spend time with your family or be happy instead of miserable. Because those are probably 12 and a half hours of misery.
And it's taking off Fridays, right? Like I didn't take off Fridays for the longest time. I wanted to take off Fridays. I wanted 3-day weekends, but I never intentionally blocked it off on my calendar so people would fill it. It is going on vacation without having your freaking laptop because you're on vacation, not to work, to vacation. And it wasn't until I started getting really intentional, really organized, and really systematized that I was able to do all of that because I was doing the same thing. I'm like, I got to search for this thing and I forgot this over here. And it was just so chaotic. And I know that stress place because I lived it. I was in burnout for far too long before I fixed it. When I fixed it, I read in the morning. I have coffee. I don't start until 10. I take Fridays off. Wednesdays, I go for massage. Like it's just a whole different thing. And I know it seems not possible. It seems like you're in the thick of it. But if you can just step out and like reevaluate and reassess and set some simple systems up, I promise you there's a better way.
Yeah, I love this. I love this. And this is where I always just want to showcase that there is help out there for the things that are not your zone of genius. Like don't expect or feel guilty if you can't figure it all out yourself. And even if you can figure it all out yourself, like getting support where you need it, when you need it, it's usually like a while after we've been needing it that we actually go out and pay for the help. And trust me when I say, if you're in the early stage of entrepreneurship, like getting organized from the beginning will save you the heartache and the stress and the possible road to failure or burnout that you will experience if you don't set yourself up to win. And speaking from someone who just threw shit at the wall for a really long time, like that's why I'm in the current situation I'm in. Yes, things are operating in a movie and I do have help. I have 2 people do help me in the game. And that's why I can stay in this zone of recording as many podcast episodes I do each and every week and showing up on social. Without that support, I wouldn't be able to do it. And so I never want anyone to think like I'm doing any of this alone. And many high people work with people like Brittany or get that outside help and support to keep them organized track because you're not meant to be able to do it all by yourself. Like we're a community people. Humans are supposed to work with humans.
Yeah. And I tell people all the time, I think that so many people, they're like, oh my gosh, I just need a VA. I need help. And I think that's the point that I need to come in before you bring on a VA, because you have to have systems in place to outsource things. You've got to have something to keep track of tasks to give them. You have to have training videos. You have to have documents of how to do things. You have to have workflows. If you don't have that stuff, that's why I think people have such problems bringing on a VA. They're like, I need a VA. I can hire a VA. But oh my gosh, it would just be easier for me to do it myself because I can't tell them all the things. And that's where I come in and like bring it all out of your brain, get everything out of your head, put it into a system that when the VA comes on, you can just outsource and give it to them. And it's so much easier because I struggled with that for the longest time. I was stuck in that spot because I didn't document videos and trainings and all of that. And I was like, I'm ready for a VA, but I'm not. And I see so much of that in people now. They are so ready, but you've got to bring somebody in to actually set up some systems that are really streamlined. And a lot of times when you do that, you realize you actually don't need a VA or you need a VA for less time. So you end up saving money that way too.
So good. Okay. So if you guys are struggling with burnout, I know you have ways that people can work with you that probably don't look like a full blown, like intrusive. What do you have that people can jump in to kind of get, if they're like, oh my God, this is me, I need right now, or I know this is going to be me pretty soon. Share with us what you got going on.
Yeah. So we've got our podcast. It's on hold right now, but we've got 125 some episodes right now that you could go binge that we talk about a lot of this. So that's free. We've got a resource page where we've got some behind the scenes training for this digital organization and CRMs and task management. So you can see how my brain works and take it and run with it and go. We do VIP intensives where we spend 2 days together and completely just go in and set it up and clean it up for you. And then we also have a membership. It's called Productivity on Purpose. So if you just need someone to hold you accountable to get shit done, we've got that space. So we actually have a call every single day, Monday through Friday, and you come, tell us what you're working on, and we check on you at the end. And if you didn't get it done, you fill out a form so that we can give you some tough love to make sure that you actually get it done. You can find everything on our website, all of our different things that we have available.
Amazing. Okay. See, there's answers to the problems in the world, you guys. Go click in the link below in the show notes. Go see what Brittany's got. Listen to some of those podcasts if you just want to see what it's like to explore doing that. But how amazing is that productivity on to be able to be held accountable each and every day if you're in real time wanting to work through some stuff, like that's some really high level support that I know can really shift and change and get you clear and organized. And you're so right about the VA piece. Like so many people think they just need that assistant, but if they could just get some things streamlined, like 12 and a half hours a week, if you're paying someone for 12 and a half hours a week, that's a lot of time. That's some substantial money you could be saving that maybe you only need help for 5 hours a week, you know? Brittany, thank you for sharing your genius with us, because some of us don't have both like you do, the creative and the integrator side. Some of us are stuck with just the active creative brain, and we need each other. So thank you for your work out there and solving problems for people so that they can get back into their zone of genius and create real cool shit in the world. And I just so appreciate having you, and I'm excited to work with you further. I'm going to reach out as soon as we're off of this and figure out how you can help me get a little bit more organized.
Yes. Thank you so much. I don't want people to quit being business owners because the business shit's hard. Like, it doesn't have to be as hard. We can organize so that we can stay in our zone of genius. And I'm just on a mission to help business owners build a business without burnout, because that's not fun. So thank you so much for having me.
Oh my God. Amen. And you guys, if you love this episode, or if you know someone who could use Brittany's help, send this podcast to them. Remind them that they can keep it simple and that things don't have to be overcomplicated. Ask for help. I know so many people struggle with asking for help. It's one of the number one things that in front of everybody when we are in our mastermind that they share, that they have a hard time asking for help. But I think the bigger pieces, they're not quite sure where to start or what they actually need help with. So reach out, have a consultation, check out what she has to offer, speak to the world. I need help with this. And I promise you will find the answers you're looking for. If you love this episode, share it with somebody, who could use it. And we'll see you on the next one.
Giving back is easy. Leave Unscripted your 5-star rating and written review. I appreciate your support more than I could ever put into words.